I'm basing the question upon the assumption that cabinet, yourself and so on, you all are privileged to get briefings from maybe the police and other agencies that would not ordinarily give it. But there seems to be a woman in the mix of the whole Choksi getting out of Antigua. That is not clear at all. Now, I'm not concerned about if there was an amorous relationship, if it's a side chick or lover or whatever. What I'm concerned about is there seems to be a woman who at various times we are hearing suggestions, including from our own Prime Minister, that she was a friend of Mr. Choksi, someone close, and she left voluntarily with him to accompany him on a good time to Dominica. But others, including Choksi and his wife, who has been speaking quite a lot to Indian media, are alleging that she was part of an abduction team or an abduction plot. So the identity of this woman, is it known? Is she in Antigua? Was she ever here? Is she still here? Is she part of the scope of inquiry into what role she played? Because I don't want to make the question too long, but so if she left with Choksi, whether as an amorous partner, whether as a friend or whatever, voluntarily is the word, it means that she participated in an illegality. They left the state illegally. I think sometimes the term exfiltration, which may not be a real word, is used. They didn't go through the normal immigration customs outlets. That would be illegal. If she was part of an abduction team or an abduction setup or whatever, that would be even more illegal in that the citizen of Antigua was abducted from the state. So the identity of that woman, her status, and if she's present in Antigua, is any of that information known at this time?
We did receive intelligence briefings. I'm not obliged to disclose any of that particular intelligence information on the basis that it could prejudice the investigations that are currently taking place. Not only our law enforcement officials here, but clearly they will have to interface with law enforcement officials in Dominica as well as the matters in the court. So I would not want to prejudice those discussions, other than to say that the cabinet has received intelligence briefings about the circumstances surrounding the departure or removal of Mr. Choksi from the island, and those investigations continue. But I think the more germane issue here that we would like to give residents the assurance, I did hint at it last week when I indicated that for the second time in perhaps maybe a month, two neighboring islands, include St. Kitts and now Dominica, would have had a situation here where someone would have left the borders here and would have arrived in another country under irregular circumstances. And so accordingly, and I think this was my response based on a question that one of the media had posed to me, that there is some challenge or some issue with respect to the border security or marine border security. And so the cabinet has given consideration and has asked me as the minister with responsibility for technology to look at what we can do to enhance the border security in terms of technology at our ports of entry. That will include Jolly Harbor, that will include Port St. John's, that will include English Harbor, and of course Barbuda, where we actually have another port of entry, legal port of entry. So we are going to have to look at that. It's likely to be a very costly endeavor, but we wanted to give our public, our citizens, the assurance that should it be borne out in fact and in the courts that Mr. Choksi himself was abducted and would have left one of our ports, then clearly that represents a matter that has to be rectified going forward. So from this standpoint, the cabinet did look at that in terms of the porosity of our borders and the lack of technology that was available. And of course, we have a limited marine protection through our Coast Guard. But they're not going to be able to monitor and control all of the waters around Antigua. So clearly, to get sufficient radar coverage around the borders of Antigua to ensure that we can detect movement and logistically understand what is taking place is something that we have to do in the immediate future.
But sir, just finally, very finally, I gather what you say, I accept it about not prejudicing investigations, not undermining intelligence. Are you not at least able to tell us whether that person existed, that woman who's been spoken about and whether in fact she was a companion of Choksi. The circumstances, you can leave that out, whether she went voluntarily, whether she was part of abduction or whatever, but does such a person exist, sir?
Well, I mean, other than what has been reported in the media, I think you would have become excited about what you would have seen, even in the Indian media, in relation to these matters. And I would not further any speculation in that particular area.